Hi, good morning, folks. Really appreciate your time and coming to our live webinar event about the launch of our Extern Extras new volunteering recruitment drive. We really appreciate all your time. We appreciate everybody that's come, both internally and externally from the organisation. And I'll be your MC for this morning, this short webinar event. My name is Declan Morris. I am the volunteer steering group chair within Extern, and it's been an absolute pleasure this last 15 months being part of this group, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about the work that we've done and how we've progressed. Just before we start, just to let you know, we will be showing a couple of videos during the webinar, and the volumes can be a little bit up and down on them, so we just ask you to be conscious of that. When you're listening to the videos, you might need to adjust your volume settings. So that's it, and that's it for me as far as housekeeping is concerned. Just to say before we start, we have a number of speakers today within the organisation and externally, which I can't wait for you all to hear. Extern Extras is a new volunteer recruitment drive, like I said, within Extern. Volunteering within Extern isn't a new thing. Really, today is about celebrating the work that we have progressed over the last 15 months. And I'd like to acknowledge the work of the steering group. I couldn't name them all, there's that many, but it's been a tremendous effort, both internally within the organisation, across departments, to embed volunteerism within the organisation and embed the work through recruitment, selection, supporting and celebrating volunteers in a way that we have done in the past, but we just want to do it better, and we want to provide those opportunities to people beyond what we have done in the past, not least within our reach out team in Belfast and Greater Belfast, who more recently have been doing tremendous work in Belfast and Greater Belfast, recruiting volunteers and supporting volunteers and providing opportunities to volunteers within Extern. And it's their work, I have to say, has helped us and guided us to create a much more robust and exciting volunteering programme within Extern. One of the interesting things about our speakers today, and I think, and not just our speakers, but across the organisation and the sector, is that there's a theme that runs through them all. We've all been volunteers, or we all still remain as volunteers, whether that be with Extern or outside of Extern. So we all appreciate and acknowledge the work that volunteers can provide an organisation like Extern, because we were there once ourselves, and we not only gained a lot of personal enjoyment out of that, but I imagine a larger sense, on a personal sense too, has provided me great professional development, particularly in the sector that I then chose to work in. So before I go on to our first speaker, I just want to say today is about the launch of our recruitment within Extern. It is a recruitment that is based on the work of the steering group and of the wider colleagues within Extern who have identified some of the needs within our services. And you can imagine those needs have changed, not least in the current climate. Those needs have changed within the organisation because of COVID, because of the lockdown situation, and a lot of people find themselves quite isolated, or more isolated perhaps than they were before. And so because of that, Extern are looking at, and our staff, we're looking at how we might be able to support those people by providing additional help through our volunteering scheme. And I suppose then, therefore, our befriender role, our telephone befriender role, is one of the major and key roles in which we are seeking people to approach Extern and provide some help and support. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in the end too. So if you're interested, or you need to find out more information beyond what you'll hear today, please by all means feel free to enter your contact details into the message bar, and we will be able to provide you with the leaflets that we've created for the new recruitment drive. And Kiva Craig, our volunteer coordinator, will happily get in touch to provide you that information too. So less of me, because I could talk and talk and talk. I can see some of my colleagues here smiling and laughing. But less about me, and let me move on to our first speaker and our first volunteer, let me add. Jerry Campbell, thank you very much for joining us today. Jerry is a volunteer. He is our chair of the Extern group and provides an awful lot of his time in helping Extern move in the direction we want to do and safeguarding us as an organisation while we do it. So, Jerry, you're very, very welcome, and the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Declan, and good morning, everybody. Absolutely delighted to be here this morning to launch the Extern Volunteering Extern Extras event. It's really healthy to see. I'm seeing 27 different attendees in addition to those on the screen, so that's good. That number keeps keep rising now over the past number of minutes. And Declan, you mentioned a bit about volunteering. Yes, I am a volunteer on Extern. As chairman of the board, I have responsibilities to ensure the strategic direction of the organisation, but I am still a volunteer like the many other hundreds of volunteers that the organisation has. And one thing I would say to everybody is it is an absolutely fantastic organisation to get involved in. I've been involved for a number of years. I thoroughly enjoy it, and the group of people that I work with, both volunteers and professionals, are absolutely fantastic. So I warmly would encourage everybody to, if you are seriously considering getting involved in Extern, this is a great organisation to get involved in. So growth has been a key feature of Extern's journey over the past 43 years since 1978. We now have projects working in 27 counties across the island of Ireland, supporting young people, families and individuals with issues such as mental health, homelessness, family support and problematic drug and alcohol use, amongst many others. Volunteers, as I've indicated and Declan has said, continue to work alongside a number of our main frontline projects over those years, providing invaluable support and bringing a wealth of skills and personal experience to their activities. This new campaign marks a step change for Extern as an organisation, as we seek to boost the number of volunteers that we recruit in Northern Ireland, whilst also widening the roles which will be available to them. This represents a much more strategic approach to how we recruit our volunteers, and as its success grows, we will begin to look at how we can roll this out further beyond Northern Ireland and into the Republic of Ireland, where our projects are carrying out groundbreaking work in areas such as youth justice and support for people with a disability. As we begin, like many others in society, to come out of lockdown, sadly, it is anticipated that there will be an even greater need for the types of services provided by Extern than ever before. This will undoubtedly include things like mental health services, and that is why one of the first roles, as Declan has alluded to, will be in relation to recruiting for telephone befrienders, which you will be hearing about in more detail further on this morning. But this is just the starting point of our campaign, and in the months and years ahead, we aim to offer many roles across many of our projects within Extern. And these are roles which will appeal to those who have the skills or the time or both to offer, and it is really rewarding not only for the organisation but for the individual themselves, and I can testify that because of my long-standing association with Extern. So thank you once again for joining us here today. I, like my colleagues in Extern, look forward to working alongside you in the months and years ahead to help continue to support Extern to make this a great and even better organisation, and to continue that very important mission of transforming people's lives for the better every single day. I wish this project every success and look forward to hearing some additional stories now over the next number of minutes. So thank you very much, everybody, and back to you, Declan.
Many thanks, Jerry. Really appreciate your time today, and some very, very interesting points made there. Like Jerry pointed out, this is a starting point for us. It acknowledges the work of volunteers in the past, but equally says we want to grow and we want to embrace more and more volunteers, and that is our intention as things change in society, to provide more than the roles we're recruiting for in this recruitment drive. We have many examples of volunteers who have provided support in different roles, and we intend to do that as we progress this and move this forward. So on to our next speaker. It is with huge honour the organisation was pleased to hear from Lady Mary Peters, who again, went way beyond her duty and provided us with a lovely video message. So I'm going to pass on to Matt, who's going to set up the video, and it's just to say a huge thanks to Lady Mary Peters for her kind words, which we can share with you now.
Hello, my name's Mary Peters, and I'm very concerned about people, particularly after this extended lockdown. I started volunteering when I was about 9 years of age. I used to go and do shopping on my bicycle for elderly people who lived in the area where I was born. And I loved it because they were so grateful and so appreciative. So I know the value of volunteering. I've been doing it ever since, and I'm now in my 80s. But there are so many lonely people having been isolated during this extended lockdown period that I think it's important if they get a phone call, just maybe once a week or twice a week, depending on how much time you have. So why don't you take up the volunteering mantle and ring somebody? I spoke to a lady in the hairdressers this morning. She hadn't spoken to anybody for 6 months, apart from her carers. And I thought, oh, how sad. And she started to cry because somebody was being kind to her. So that little bit of kindness can change somebody's life forever. Just pick up the phone and do it now. Ring Extern and volunteer.
Thank you very much indeed, Lady Mary Peters. I think you'll all agree, some lovely messages there, both personal messages and personal messages, like I said before, that we all can associate with and empathize with in our roles, both professionally and as volunteers in the past. And it's with that I want to introduce our next video, which is our official promotional video for Extern Extras, and you'll hear some of the speakers here today talk about some of their experiences with Extern and the value of Extern, like Lady Mary Peters spoke of, which can be of huge benefit to both the volunteers and the people that we support. So a huge thank you to everybody that put this together, and I hope you enjoy it.
If you are looking for an opportunity to help transform the lives of some of the most vulnerable people in our communities, why not think about becoming a volunteer with Extern? We are a diverse and life-changing charity working across the island of Ireland to transform the lives of some of the most vulnerable and isolated in our communities. The people we work with are exceptional. So too are the people who work for us, and that includes our wonderful volunteers.
I've been volunteering with Extern probably in the region about 5-6 years. It started quite a way back. Our local football team, we got involved with Extern to try and promote positive mental health through sport. Being a volunteer, I get a sense of achievement. I enjoy it, helping others. It's some of the things I really enjoy when I'm volunteering. Being a volunteer with Extern, I've gained some qualifications that have been very useful. Mental health first aid, safe talk, assist trained. I've also done coaching badges through football, have all helped me volunteering.
My name's Ben Johnston, and I used to be a volunteer with Extern, and now I actually work with Extern. There's a whole raft of knowledge, experience, expertise that comes with the volunteers. They all bring something completely unique, and Extern have a lot of different services. So there's key skill sets that are maybe needed and required with each service, but the volunteers are brilliant at bringing a lot of different skills and knowledge, and even to help out the staff and to give us a new perspective on things. We obviously support a lot of different individuals in Extern, and we need people that can help us in that work and help listen to people, support people at their point of need, really be caring and empathic with people, and just get on people's level with them, and be another person that they can talk to if they need support. The qualities we would look for in a volunteer are someone who is kind, compassionate, empathic, can listen, can meet people at their point of need, can see people where they're at, can work with and alongside the extern staff to help support the projects.
We are always on the lookout for friendly, motivated people who can offer their time and skills to help support us, whether that's working alongside one of our frontline projects on a longer term basis, or spending a few hours in your spare time collecting funds, helping out with an event, or raising awareness of our fantastic work.
Volunteers are really important to our organisation because they help us connect with so many more people. We do great work and our staff reach a lot of people who need our support, but with volunteers we can reach so many more in local communities and areas that we wouldn't normally work in.
When you become a volunteer with Extern, you will also be working alongside a first-class team of professionals in the health and social care sectors.
Volunteers are very important to Extern for helping provide support to frontline services. They also bring new ideas to staff and they bring a new perspective. They help get the word of Extern out into the community and build that trust within community settings.
Not only will you receive a first-class training and induction programme delivered in partnership with our award-winning practice development unit, you can also expect to feel supported and encouraged throughout your volunteering journey.
Extern really values volunteers for what they can bring to Extern. So if you volunteer with Extern, what we can promise you is we can promise you world-class support in terms of our practice development unit. You will be supported by a dedicated member of staff. You will clearly understand what our expectations are of you through a volunteer role description. But most importantly, I'd like to think that you will have a sense of enjoyment in the work that you do, a sense of making a difference, and an opportunity to transform the lives of thousands of people every year.
To find out more or register your interest, simply visit the volunteering section on our website, www.extern.org. A member of our volunteering team will be in touch to say hello and talk you through the roles we have available and what's required to apply. We look forward to hearing from you and to seeing how you can help transform the lives of those we support each and every day.
A great video. Again, let me just say a huge thank you to everybody involved in putting it together. I think it spells out very clearly some of the key benefits of volunteering with Extern and the things that we hope to provide volunteers if they want to come and volunteer with us as an organisation. A lot of work has went into, like I said, embedding how we recruit, select and support, and how we want to celebrate volunteers as we move forward. You'll have noticed in the video a couple of familiar faces. One of those faces is now joining us streaming live in the webinar today. A huge thank you to Ben and Dorothy who are joining us today. I will say no more than that and say the floor is now yours, Ben and Dorothy. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Declan.
Hiya.
I think I already introduced myself there in the video that you had seen, but my name's Ben Johnston, and I actually currently work now for our SAFE project that supports families bereaved by suicide across the Greater Shankill area. I started off when Extern took over the project as a volunteer in the project, and it was brilliant for me to gain both the experience and the training that I needed. And then, funny enough, when the job came up, I actually applied for it and got it through the experience and the training that I had had. So I now work within Extern, and it's great to have seen both sides, as people were talking about earlier, between having been a volunteer and knowing the strengths that they bring, such as the likes of Dorothy that is with me here today. So that's a wee bit, I suppose, just about my journey. This campaign, I think, will be really, really good in terms of getting a lot more people to volunteer, because we know that Extern have a lot of different projects, and someone will find something. So they will, if they're looking to give a few hours a week of their time, they'll find something that they'll like and something that they'll enjoy within this, such as, hopefully, Dorothy will agree with me, she has as well. So do you want to just tell us a wee bit about how you've kind of got started volunteering with Extern? And
yeah, I was brought into the SAFE project through my own bereavement, sore throat, as you can hear. Through my own bereavement of, I lost my only son to suicide. So when I was brought into the SAFE project, I was in a very bad place. Needed as much support as I could get, and through Ben and the other volunteers, it brought me back to my normal life and learned me how to live again. So I decided to be a volunteer. I now help support Ben with family members that comes into the group. I do one-to-ones. I'm trained in acupuncture, of counselling courses, and also help Ben quite a lot when he's out training. So I recommend anyone that wants to volunteer, lift the phone Extern and go out there and do it.
She undersells herself sometimes. I'd be lost without some of the volunteers that I have. So it's brilliant just to be able to pick up the phone, and if I need someone to help me out in an event, or I need someone to help me out with training. And I think it's brilliant, Dorothy, that you can support new family members coming into our support group as well. Because as you say, you've been there, you know what that feels like, and you can put people at ease when they're coming into a new group of people. What kind of things do you get out of volunteering? How do you see it helping other people?
I enjoy speaking to other people that it's in the same situation that I was. I know exactly from day one how they're feeling. I hopefully I can sit and talk them through it, through their grief, and show them that there is help out there and that we do care, and there is hope at the end of it. You continue to live on. You'll never forget, but you'll always remember. I would say.
And I think that's the brilliant thing that volunteers show as well, especially volunteers such as yourself that have come through services and had needed support, and now you're able to actually offer that to other people, which I think is absolutely amazing. So I do, and I know that myself, even with volunteering before. You knew me even when I was a volunteer.
Yeah, I did.
So you did as well. Has it made a difference to your life, volunteering, or what have you personally kind of got out of it?
I personally got out of enjoying meeting new people, letting people know that there is people out there cares, and there's always someone is willing to listen. I enjoy meeting new people and making them feel at ease when they come into the SAFE group, because most of them that comes in are really scared and frightened, and they don't know what to expect. So hopefully I help in a way to make them feel at ease. And Dorothy always jumps on, as do some of our other volunteers, do all the training and stuff that is offered as well. And I know you've done the likes of your Safe Talk, your Assist, your mental health first aid and that too, which I suppose has really helped you in then trying to support other people coming into the group and in the work that you're doing as well. It also helped me to be able to speak to my family and give my own kids and my husband support when they were struggling. So I do highly recommend anyone that has a few hours to spare, lift the phone and become a volunteer.
Thank you,
it's so
Dorothy.
rewarding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's back to you, Declan.
Wow, folks. Let me say before I go any further, it's not just thanks and normal thanks, and I've thanked everybody who's spoken so far. That was extremely brave of Dorothy to share some of her own personal experiences, but it's a tremendous example, not just to you as an individual, Dorothy, but I think a sense for us all about the benefits of volunteering, and how if you do come and volunteer with an organisation like Extern, how we try our very best to ensure that you're supported appropriately, that you're provided with the right training so that you can do your role appropriately, And by the sounds of it, that's what we've been able to achieve for your good self. But huge thank you to Ben and Dorothy in particular for your sharing of your personal story as well. I think that shouldn't go unacknowledged. So many thanks for that. It's on that note though about the level of training and I suppose the quality at which we want to deliver and support and celebrate our volunteers that we obviously have gone on this journey, not just over the last 15 months in establishing Extern Extras on a wider sphere, but we haven't done it alone. We haven't been silly enough to say that we know best. We have engaged from day dot with Volunteer Now in Northern Ireland here to ensure that we are adhering to the best practices and the best guidance from an organisation like Volunteer Now, who have provided and supported us on our journey to get into where we are today, as have our other projects like Ben's Safe Project and Reach Out in Belfast before. So it's with that I'd like to introduce Lindsey from Volunteer Now, who's going to speak about the work of Volunteer Now, and let me just say a huge thank you to Volunteer Now, and Lindsey knows that it's not just her but all her colleagues that Extern have engaged with in the last number of months, and I imagine over the years, to helping us. So Lindsey, many thanks for joining us. The floor is yours.
No problem. Good morning, everyone. It is so lovely to be here today and to speaking to you about and also hear about the fantastic work that Extern has been involved in. It's very hard to follow, I think, Dorothy and Ben, but I will do my utmost. As Declan said, Volunteer Now has been involved with Extern for a number of years, but particularly over this last period of time in terms of embedding good practice, and it has been our absolute pleasure to be involved in that. It wasn't me personally, but it was my colleagues within the organisation. So it's great to be here today and to see this launch. So as Declan said, my name is Lindsey Armstrong. I work for Volunteer Now, and as an organisation, we were established in April 2010. And we were the result of a merger between 9 different organisations, and that included the regional body, Volunteer Development Agency, and some of the local volunteer centres, one of which, and the oldest of which, was the VSB, which some of you may remember, and they celebrated their 40th anniversary prior to the merger. So we come with a long history of volunteering. And volunteering is at the core of everything that we do within the organisation. We also have Volunteer Now Enterprises, which sits alongside our charity, and it is very much our training arm of the organisation. So it provides lots of different training around volunteer management, safeguarding training, and bespoke training for organisations as well. So myself within the organisation, I'm the Community Projects Manager, and we deliver a range of volunteer-led services for vulnerable older people in Belfast. And that includes things like befriending, driving, shopping support. And as well as that, we are involved in quite a range of different capacity building work for older people's groups to try to keep older people engaged in volunteering and contributing for as long as they can. And so we support a range of different groups, and that includes the likes of some of the senior citizens forums in Belfast, one of which being the Greater Shankill Senior Citizens Forum and the West Belfast 50+ Forum. But my role here today is really to give you a quick snapshot around the volunteering picture across Northern Ireland, and then taking into account COVID and the impact that has had, because I think as organisations we need to bear that in mind when we're going forward and planning with our volunteer recruitment. So generally, one of the ways in which statistics is gathered around volunteering across Northern Ireland is through the continuous household survey. And that is stats that are gathered by NISRA on an annual basis. And it started in that format around 2017. So our most up-to-date information is around 2020 in terms of who volunteers. And again, it's a snapshot. So just to say, from that survey, there's about 28% of the adult population that's involved in volunteering in Northern Ireland. And within the age range, we can see a higher proportion of people from that 16 to 24 age range get involved in volunteering, and then it dips a bit, and then we're picking right up again come that 45 to 64-year-old age range in terms of who is out there actively volunteering. In terms of what they're volunteering for, interestingly, this hasn't really changed much over the years. Top of the list is church-based, faith-based activities. 39% of all people who involve in volunteering, that's their volunteering of choice. And then sports is directly after that. And then community work, neighbourhood work is third on the list. And then volunteer work with youth and children outside of the school setting as well. So those are our sort of top 4 areas, although we know there's lots more opportunities that are out there. Generally, who gets involved? Mostly people who are economically active would be that kind of profile in terms of people who are volunteering their time. And then also people, participants living in the least deprived areas or rural areas are more likely to volunteer their time than deprived areas or urban areas, interestingly enough. So that was the snapshot as of then. But we know that COVID was a real game changer for all of us. And we wanted to be able to sort of find out some volunteering statistics as a result of COVID. And so in October 2020, Volunteer Now commissioned a survey with Queen's University. And that was really focusing, looking at Northern Ireland, and the objective of the survey was to assess the impact of COVID-19 on volunteer participation pre, during and post-COVID. And interestingly, similar surveys had been carried out with Volunteer Scotland, looking at Scotland as a whole in volunteering, and through Volunteer Ireland as well, and the impact of that in Ireland in terms of volunteering. So we launched our research in March of this year, so it's hot off the press, and it was entitled Volunteering During the Pandemic and Beyond, a Northern Ireland Perspective. And within that survey, we were sampling just over 1,000 adults aged 18 plus. And it was a similar picture if we look at Volunteer Scotland, but their age range started lower. So they were starting looking at people from the age of 16, and Volunteer Ireland, similar figure in terms of numbers involved, but again, their figure was slightly lower in terms of 15-year-olds they were starting to involve within that survey. And when we were looking at volunteering as part of this survey, we were looking at it in 3 different perspectives. So what we talk about formal volunteering, and what I mean by that is it's like volunteering with Extern. So you go to an organisation and you go through their process. That is what we would call formal volunteering. Then there's the informal volunteering. And sometimes that can be, for the purpose of this, is about an informal maybe group that's set up in your local area to help and support local people, help identify a local need. And we can see that through COVID, there was an explosion of that kind of thing that was happening at a very localised level. And if you were connected in with social media in any way, shape or form, you could see new groups emerging almost on a daily basis because of an identified need in that local area. And then what we're calling mutual aid. So that is where, as an individual, that you're helping someone else off your own bat. So again, there was lots of calls put out both at a local level and a regional level about, keep an eye out on your elderly neighbours, check in with people, make those phone calls, have a conversation, see how people are. So those are the 3 areas that we were looking at in relation to volunteering. And interestingly enough, when we looked at the pre-COVID and what was happening during COVID within Northern Ireland, we saw a 30% increase in terms of people volunteering their time, which is huge and amazing. But interestingly still is that it was similar both in the other countries. So Scotland was the same, around 30% increase, as was Ireland as well. So again, a similar picture is emerging, which is great to see. In terms of who was volunteering more of their time, the younger age groups came through as more likely to volunteer than older people during the pandemic. And those economically active more likely to volunteer than the economically inactive. And younger people volunteering is probably no surprise when we look at maybe some of the problems with COVID and certainly some of the older people, not exclusively older people, who were asked to shield during that period or were considered clinically extremely vulnerable and would not have been advised to kind of stay at home. In terms of what people were volunteering for, the kind of top 5, food shopping, right at the top of the list there for people, and that was similar across Ireland and Scotland as well. Befriending folks, so what we're here to talk about today is one aspect of what Extern does. Befriending those at risk was high up there as well, and again a similar picture in Ireland and Scotland. Household tasks people were involved in, the collection and the delivery of prescriptions, and food support, but not shopping, was that sort of top 5. The only difference in Ireland was that transport to medical appointments kind of was higher up on the list than the food support, but a very similar picture across the piece. So some of the key findings from that was certainly the rise in informal volunteering. You kind of fail to have noticed it. It was fantastic, that sense of community spirit. And people who responded to our survey were mainly involved in that kind of local community-based activities that were reportedly on the increase during COVID-19. So some of the things that I've alluded to before, that kind of very localised need being identified and individuals coming together to do something about it. Interestingly, the proportion of people who said that they would intend to volunteer in the future, and again, this is important for organisations like ourselves, it was similar across the three countries. It was slightly lower in Northern Ireland, with 48% saying that people want to volunteer in the future, 59% in Scotland and 62% in Ireland. But interestingly, in Northern Ireland, for those people who said they wanted to continue to volunteer, through the survey, they want to give more time than their counterparts in Ireland or Scotland. So we have a unique opportunity here to try to capture those people who want to give more time. And that's one of the challenges, I think, for organisations like ourselves and like Extern. How do we capitalise on that? How do we continue to engage those people who have come forward through COVID, through the pandemic, into more longer term volunteering roles? And that's something that we all need to get our thinking caps on, and how do we best engage with people. And one of the ways that we can do that, and I mean, I couldn't put it any more perfectly than what Dorothy and Ben had said, why do people volunteer? And that's really important for us as organisations to know, because once we know the motivations of people, we can try to see if we can adapt those motivations that those people have. We can see as an organisation, can we respond to that motivation? And we would generally ask for people to ask that as part of the interview process. Why do you want to get involved? Because those are really important things. But some of the top things that people come out with is people want to make a difference, or they want to support a cause that's close to their heart. They see a need and they want to respond to that need. They want to pass on their own experience or skills, or they maybe want to gain skills or experience themselves. But one really important fact that we should never forget is that people want to be able to make friends. They want to make connections. They want to make connections not only with each other, but with their local community as well. And that's what we at the voluntary sector are really good at doing. And we need to be aware of that in terms of bringing new people on board. So it's wonderful to see these new developments in Extern. We are delighted at Volunteer Now to be able to continue to work in partnership with Extern. Part of Volunteer Now's role is about promoting volunteering and volunteer roles. And one of the ways that we achieve this is through our Be Collective system, which is an online platform and allows us to promote volunteering activities for a wide range of not-for-profit organisations across Northern Ireland. And essentially this platform is about making it easier for people to volunteer. So you have one platform that you can go to, and you can get a very localised search in terms of what you're interested in and where you live, to make it as easy as possible as we can for those people to get to the right volunteering opportunities. But we know that befriending as a role can be a more difficult role to recruit for, because we're asking for a longer term commitment, aren't we? We're asking for people to give more. There'll be training involved in order to prepare people for their roles. And there's generally a longer recruitment process because there's maybe lots of different elements that we need to go through. And making the right match is so important between the person and the client that we're supporting as well. And what we found best works, and what you have demonstrated perfectly this morning, is that personal story is the way, because you will remember Dorothy's story, you will remember Ben's story long before my statistics are forgotten. And that is how it should be. That is what inspires people to volunteer, people who are brave enough. And Dorothy, your story, I mean, it almost made me want to cry. I had to hold it together. So brave to share your story, but your story will have ripple effects far than you will ever know, because people will identify with that story and they will want to get involved because they think that they can share in that story as well. So the more people we get to share the stories and the impact that volunteering can have from both perspectives, the more we will encourage and support other people to get involved. And we've seen how befriending has had to change and develop during COVID. Organisations have had to move really quickly to ensure that services continue during lockdown, moving from the likes of face-to-face befriending to the telephone service that you're talking about, but also using platforms like Zoom so that people can meet online, or perhaps having a socially distanced meeting when it was allowed, maybe in a garden, and the weather allowed us to kind of meet so that we could continue to provide those services. And alongside that, organisations like ourselves and like Extern, we've had to develop the good practice to sit alongside these new approaches to volunteering and providing that befriending service. And at Volunteer Now, we coordinate the befriending network for Northern Ireland, and it's these sorts of issues we have been working through collectively over the last year and supporting each other to ensure that we embed all that new good practice within each of our organisations, and we would really welcome Extern to be part of that as well. So finally, just to say a huge thank you for asking us to be part of your story today. We are so thrilled, and a huge congratulations to you all for making it such a success. Thank you.
That's you, Declan.
Lindsey, many thanks. I think it goes without question we're talking to the right people when we go on this journey. It's very clear that the Volunteer now provide a massive amount of support to organisations like ourselves, and we hope to continue that journey with you too, and reach out as we progress our programme of recruitment. Just to touch on one thing that you did say around the impact of COVID was very interesting. That was the key part of our review of our offer, I suppose, to people and the roles that we would offer. And just to remind people that they can go onto our website, to the volunteer section on our website, and they will see as of today what our current offer is, one of which we've heard about today is our telephone befriender role, and there are a few other roles that we have identified within our services that we're keen to hear from people. So please click on the website, go and have a little look. You'll see that there are a few roles outside of just the befriender role that we're keen to hear from interested parties from. So again, thank you, Lindsey, much appreciated. We've allowed a short period of time for a little Q&A. If there was any questions from people, I can see, Matt, there's a couple here that I just want to address very quickly. One of the questions is, what other roles might Extern be able to offer in the future? I've hinted that we are currently offering more than just the befriender role. It is the main recruitment drive for us, but there are other roles there that people can see on the website, and the website will be updated as we do different recruitment drives, and we plan to do at least 2 each year. There may well also be a dedicated one for fundraising volunteers, as our fundraising manager Grace O'Neill starts to plan out our events for fundraising. That has been made a little bit more difficult, as people can appreciate, over the last 12 months. But as we start to move into a more normal world, we would hope to ramp that up, and there may well be a specific recruitment drive for volunteer fundraisers specifically. But essentially, we'll be looking at recruiting volunteers for our services twice a year. So you should keep an eye on the website and keep in touch with us to find out as those roles vary. Up to and before COVID lockdown, we had a variety of roles within our reach out team in Belfast and Greater Belfast. And our CIT programme, there was a vast number of different roles. That has obviously had to reduce in size given the situation that we're in. So it will vary as our needs change as an organisation, as the needs of society changes. We will adapt our roles and we will look at varying offers. I sort of answered 2 questions there about how frequently you'd recruit. How long does it take from signing up to being able to get started? Well, look, this very much depends. Lindsey has already hinted there about the befriender role, particularly in some of our services where our dedicated staff are working with very vulnerable individuals. It will all depend, but we aim to have successful volunteers through their Access NI or Garda checks as we roll out into the Republic of Ireland. We would hope to get people through that within 4 to 6 weeks of first applying for a role. The timescales, like I say, can vary depending on the necessary vetting checks. But again, we have a volunteer coordinator in place, Kiva Cregan, whose details again can be found on our website and on our flyer. So again, remember, if you're looking at a wee copy of that flyer, we'll be sending it out to people who are with us today. If you need additional information, just please let us know. Like I say, Kiva, our volunteer coordinator, our first point of contact, is there to guide anybody through the process from the moment that they express any sort of interest. So by all means, get in touch. I think that's all our questions. It is, yeah. Okay, folks, many thanks. Our last speaker today again is somebody who isn't already, if he isn't already familiar to you, would have been familiar to you via the video as well. it's our interim CEO, Danny McQuillan, who I know holds volunteering as dear as I do, and sees it as a massive benefit to individuals and to an organisation like Extern. So Danny, over to your good self.
You're on mute, Danny.
Taking me off mute. Bear with me 1 second. Can I just say a big thank you to everyone for being here today. We're really sorry it couldn't be in person. We all know the reasons why it can't be in person, but we really appreciate you joining us today. And can I also say, Dorothy, thank you so much for sharing what is a very personal story. And I was struck when Lindsey mentioned why people, the motivation behind people volunteering, and the motivation was to support a cause or to make a difference and make connections in the local community. And can I just say, Dorothy and Ben, I know from visiting the project, from speaking with you and from seeing the impact you have, and that's exactly what you have done through your volunteering and your work. So thank you so much. So as you've been hearing, the launch of Extern Extras represents a really exciting new initiative for our organisation. And the campaign has the potential to be a real game changer for us. It will enable us to offer so many more supports to those who need it most, and enhance the work of our fantastic frontline teams in projects across Northern Ireland. We know that sometimes all it takes is a kind word, as Lady Mary Peters said, or a few minutes of one's time to begin turning life around for someone in distress. And that's why these befriending roles will be so important in the weeks and months ahead as we begin to transition out of lockdown. Volunteering is its own reward, we know that, but anyone who does choose to join Extern will be able to avail of excellent training and induction, as you've heard, as well as the opportunity to learn and develop new skills which can help with developing a career in the exciting and challenging field of social care. Volunteers will also have an important part to play in our ongoing fundraising work, because if we don't have the funds, we can't make a difference, particularly as we begin to engage in more public-facing events with the transition back to life as it was before lockdown. When Declan and Matt talked to me about volunteering, I began to think about my own volunteering journey, and it's quite frightening when I think about it, because I started volunteering when I was 17. And for me, I volunteered to meet new people, to gain new skills. And my first volunteering work was around helping to organise cross-community youth meetings and residentials. And actually, I got involved in developing a youth-led cross-community topical newsletter. And I think I still have copies somewhere in the house. And that really was the beginning of my volunteering journey. And since then, I've had and held many volunteering roles. I currently volunteer for a local community group and help deliver toys and food to those in need. I have previously held the volunteer position as a board member of my local play group, particularly as my own children were going through the education system. I'm very proud to be a founding member of Dementia NI, Northern Ireland's only dementia-led charity, which has gone from strength to strength. And I currently sit on the board of Belfast Healthy Cities, a World Health Organization aligned organisation seeking to improve health literacy and health outcomes for people living in the Greater Belfast area. But little did I know, as a 17-year-old who was really just seeking to meet new people and have new discussions and conversations, that first volunteering opportunity would lead me into a career in the voluntary and charitable sector. And 30 years, and I went when I said 30 years after that first volunteering experience, I can safely say that I owe my career to that first volunteering opportunity, and I have never looked back. So it just remains for me to thank you once again for joining us to celebrate what is our first step as Extern in our new volunteering journey. This really is an exciting new campaign for us, and I look forward to your support in the months and years ahead. Thank you so much to everybody, and back to you, Declan.
Danny, many thanks. Really appreciate it, and again, thanks for that. The personal touch, I think that's always important for us all to recognise and remember. Like I said at the beginning, we all share that. We all share that sense of having volunteered before. Folks, it is my job just to simply say and reiterate what Danny has said and others. A huge thank you for joining us today. Please get in touch. We're excited about the journey taken and the new journey that we go on. Please keep in touch. Check the website. We will be providing you with leaflets, our official leaflet for this launch and this recruitment drive. And we look forward to hearing from you and hearing from others that you may want to share the information with. Please do. We want your support. We appreciate your support. And on that note, many thanks for joining us, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you, Declan. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.